All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Sani Abubakar, a senior registrar in Federal University, Federal Teaching Hospital, Gombe. Today, I will be reviewing this article titled Influence of Systolic Blood Pressure on Outcomes. Sorry, let me make some adjustment. Of these things are blocking my screen.
Sure.
You take what? Come.
Can we all keep our microphones muted, please? Thank you. Please keep your microphones muted. Everybody, thank you, except the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good day once again. My name is Dr. Sani Abubakar. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a senior registrar in the Department of Medicine, Federal Teaching Hospital, Gombe. Today, I will be reviewing this article titled Influence of Systolic Blood Pressure on Outcomes in Nigeria with Perioperative Cardiomyopathy. These are the authors. This article was published about 2 weeks ago in Nigerian Journal of Clinical Practice. It is an international journal, a monthly peer review that is published by Medical and Dental Consultant Associations of Nigeria. So looking at the title, sorry, before that, this journal has an impact factor of 1.1. So looking at this title is able to tell us the address of the study, and the study. So the title is
so there's some difficulty hearing you. If you can just adjust your hands-free, maybe that's how we can hear you. I see you on hands-free. Okay, go ahead. And in fact, now we're not hearing you anymore. I can't hear you. So maybe if you just give me a second to reclaim host, and then I'll change the security settings. Okay. Just give me a second. I don't know what the problem is, but I can. Okay. Can you try sharing screen again, please? Let's see. I've changed the security settings. Try again. And then your audio, I still can't hear you. You still can't share screen? I can't hear you. Perhaps you should. Is it possible you ditch the headset for now? Let's see. Maybe there's a problem with it. I can't hear you, and I can see chat saying they can't hear you.
I think you should remove the headset.
Yes, the headset. I think so too. Yes.
I've removed it.
Oh, good. Now we can hear you. How about sharing screen?
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. Are you still having a problem sharing screen? It looks like his screen.
If I can join with my phone.
Okay, there's a problem with your laptop, but the problem is if you join with your phone, then you might not be able to share screen. It's a bit more challenging. You can do it, but it's a little more challenging.
Okay. Let me try again.
Okay, all right. If it's giving us problems, I'll just make it. Okay, it looks like it's coming up. Okay, I haven't seen it. You know what? Let me just make you host.
You can make him a co-host. You can still retain the host, right?
Okay, Prof, don't laugh at me, but my plan is just a little above basic plan. You're either host or you're not host. I can't make co-host. So, Dr. Abubakar, so I can make you host. Oh, looks like he's dropped out of the meeting. Maybe he's trying to log out and log back in. Sorry about the glitch, everybody. Oh, he's still here, but he's not connected to audio. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, he's joined the audio now. So I think I'll just make you host and keep fingers crossed. All right. So go ahead. I've made you host now. So go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the glitches. Like I was saying, looking at the title of the journal, the word counts is within the acceptable number. And also with this title, you can be able to know the objective of this study. You can be able to know the population and also the study location. So the title is well stated. So for the review of this journal, I'll follow this outline for further review of this journal. Peripartum cardiomyopathy is an important cause of heart failure with reduced left ventricular ejection fraction that exclusively affects women with pre-existing heart disease without pre-existing heart disease towards the end of pregnancy or in the first few months of delivery. Peripartum cardiomyopathy is important to know that it's a diagnosis of exclusion. It is a global disease with various epidemiology. In Northwest Nigeria, highest prevalence was reported with a significant morbidity and mortality. as clearly demonstrated in Nigerian Peace Registry. Peace Registry is a registry that involves a registry of peripheral cardiomyopathy patients that goes across all the 6 geopolitical zones that involve about 14 different states where patients registry was kept. So,
sorry, Dr. Sani, sorry. That's the problem of having been able to have only one host. Can everybody please mute their mics? There's a lot of interference. Dr. Sani, your host, can you just change security to not allow anybody, don't allow participants unmute themselves? There's a lot of interference. Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. Go ahead. Good. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. So blood pressure is, it has been reported to have inverse relationship with worse outcomes in patients with acute or chronic heart failure. Because those patients that have low blood pressure, clinicians found it difficult to introduce those life-saving medications. And then the prognostic influence of high blood pressure on mortality was also found to be consistent across age, gender, race, and race. So a Japanese nationwide survey of peripheral cardiomyopathy demonstrated effects of interaction between left ventricular ejection fraction and mortality. So in this Peace Registry, prescription of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists, ACE inhibitors were found to be very low. About 24.4% of patients were able to prescribe on these drugs. And these drugs are known to have prognostic implications in management of these patients. This was perceived due to several factors such as poor social financing, delayed diagnosis, low socioeconomic status of the patients. And then this is the paucity of data on the relationship between BP trajectories and outcomes patients with peripheral cardiomyopathy, and that led to this study in our population. And the aim of this study was to assess clinical features and outcomes of peripheral cardiomyopathy patients that are grouped according to a baseline systolic blood pressure. These patients were grouped into 7 based on their baseline systolic blood pressure. So like I said earlier, it was a multi-center longitudinal study that was carried out in 14 sites that was spread across all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria. The paper is a post-hoc analysis of this Peace Registry data, and the detailed protocol have already been published. But this is the summary of the methodology. All peripheral cardiomyopathy patients that were presenting to these study centers from June 2017 to March 2018 were consecutively recruited. That means recruitment lasted for about 9 to 10 months. And then after these patients have fulfilled the inclusion criteria, these patients were followed up from March 2018 to March 2019. So on average, these patients had the follow-up range from 12 to 21 months. And then pre-existing patients with diagnosis of preeclampsia, peripheral cardiomyopathy were also involved in this study, irrespective of the symptoms. But the other inclusion criteria include pregnant women, 28 weeks of gestation with heart failure symptoms, and up to first 5 months postpartum with that are at least 18 years of age and provided informed consent, and they had functional New York functional class 2, 3, or 4, meaning these patients have at least dyspnea, slight limitation of physical activity to those that have class 4 that have symptoms at rest. And also this patient must have left ventricular ejection fraction less than 45% on echocardiography. This is a hallmark of diagnosis of peripartum cardiomyopathy. So exclusion criteria was that patients that lacked reliable phone numbers were excluded to minimize loss to follow up. Ethical approval for the study was obtained from various research committees in those centers, and a pre-test questionnaire was used to collect demographic, clinical, and laboratory data of the patients. Prescribed medication and dosages were also documented. So BP measurements was in accordance with the recommendation of the European Society of Hypertension, and systolic blood pressure at first presentation was categorized. The systolic blood pressure at first presentation was used to categorize these patients. These patients were grouped into 7. Those that have systolic blood pressure of less than 90, 90 to 99, 100 to 109, 110 to 119, 120 to 129, 130 to 139, and those that have systolic blood pressure of greater than or equal to 140 millimeters of mercury. Rate pressure product was also calculated by multiplying the heart rates by systolic blood pressure at the time of admission, at the time of presentation. And then high rate pressure product was defined as value greater than 10,000. Electrocardiography, echocardiography were carried out on these subjects using standard criteria and methods. Patients were evaluated at 3 monthly intervals, and echo was repeated 6 monthly to assess for the presence and extent of myocardial remodeling and changes in the size of cardiac chambers. So unrecovered left ventricular systolic function was defined as echocardiographic left ventricular ejection fraction of less than 55% at the last profiling. The continuous data analysis, continuous variables were explored for the presence of skewness, proportions, median, interquartile range, and means, with standard deviations were used to summarize subject characteristics. Chi-square, Fisher-Exact test, student t-test, and Mann-Whitney test were used to compare continuous and categorical variables as appropriate. So association between all-cause mortality and blood pressure categories and other variables of interest were determined using cost regression models, and to derive adjusted hazard ratio of an 95% confidence interval as independent correlates of all-cause mortality. Regression models were developed to explore the relationship between left ventricular functional recovery and systolic blood pressure, and is grouping to drive adjusted odds ratio. Two-sided p-value of 0.05 was used as the minimum level of statistical significance. The statistical analysis was carried out using statistical package system, SPSS version 27. So these are the results. At the end of recruitment, that's 9 to 10 months from the beginning of this research, a total of 227 patients were enrolled into this registry. 4% had systolic blood pressure of less than 90 millimeters of mercury, 16.3% had 90 to 99. Those that have blood pressure of 100 to 109 and 100 to 119 accounted for about 49.4% of these patients. And 18.5% had blood pressure of 120 to 129, 7.5% 130 to 139, and 4.4% had baseline systolic blood pressure of greater than or equal to 140 millimeters of mercury. This table shows clinical characteristics, echocardiography features, and outcomes of these patients. I have already discussed the blood pressure categories, and so you can see that. Sorry, let me use a pointer. Sorry, let me use a pointer. Okay, so based on this table, you can see that the age variation, systolic and diastolic blood pressure, heart rate, and New York Heart Association at presentation. It's important to know that about 41 patients, that is 18.1%, had preeclampsia. 18.1% had preeclampsia, and 22.3% of these patients had left ventricular ejection fraction of less than. Sorry. Okay, sorry. So you can see that, so this table is showing, this column is showing the number and percentages for each group. So you can see that the number of those that present at New York Heart classification, class 3 and 4, that means those that have symptoms with marked limitation of physical activity at rate. 66.7% of those patients, group 1 had 66.7%. And then if you look at those that have systolic blood pressure of more than 100, accounted for only 30% of their population. Even though the population distribution is not equal, only 9 patients had systolic blood pressure less than 90. We can see that the percentage of those that had New York Heart classification 3 and 4 is higher in those that have blood pressure of less than 90 millimeters of mercury. And also the preeclampsia, if you look at preeclampsia, 50% of patients that had blood pressure of more than 140 millimeters of mercury had preeclampsia. And then those that had systolic blood pressure of less than 90 were 22% of those patients had preeclampsia. So most likely these patients came with blood pressure of less than 90 from other comorbidities like sepsis that could account for the low blood pressure they presented despite being diagnosed to have preeclampsia. Only 5% of these patients had pneumonia as a complication, and you can see. Okay, only one of these patients, that's 11.1% of those with blood pressure of less than 90 had pneumonia as a complication. Those that have blood pressure that ranges from 100 to 119 had no case was reported. And also those that have blood pressure of 130 to greater than or equal to 130 millimeters of mercury. You can see this and this group had no patients with pneumonia. Then the last two variables are talking about the outcome of these patients. That is mortality and unrecovered systolic dysfunction. You can see that 55.9% of patients with baseline systolic blood pressure less than 55.9 died, and then 20% mortality in those that have systolic blood pressure more than 100 and greater than or equal to 140. But you can see that the distribution is non-linear because even those that had systolic blood pressure of less of 100 to 109 had mortality of 14.3%. Lesser than those that have blood pressure greater than or equal to 140. Okay, this figure is clearly showing the outcome. The blue is showing the baseline, representing the baseline systolic blood pressure, and then the red is representing the mortality. You can see that the percentage mortality is higher in those that had blood pressure 130 to 190 compared to even those that had blood pressure less than 90. But the percentage is higher if you compare the number of those that are enrolled for this. So heart rate and frequency of new heart association functional class 3 or 4 seem to display a U-shaped relationship with the systolic blood pressure being the highest in less than 90 millimeters of mercury, and lowest in those that have 129 millimeters of mercury. And 59.9% had frequency of red pressure product of more than 10,000 with significant variation between groups. But none in the systolic blood pressure of less than 90 millimeters of mercury, and also greater than or equal to 140 millimeters of mercury. The highest proportion of all-cause mortality was recorded among patients with systolic blood pressure of less than 90 millimeters of mercury, followed by those with 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury, the p-value of 0.6. While unrecovered systolic dysfunction did not display any relationship with systolic blood pressure, the p-value is 0.6. In a post-professional regression model for all-cause mortality, systolic blood pressure less than 90 millimeters of mercury had heart rate hazard ratio of 4, 99 confidence interval between 1.49 to 10 points, value of 0.06. And less ventricular ejection fraction had a hazard ratio of 0.94, confidence interval of 0.91 to 0.98, p-value of 0.06. And use of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, beta blockers, or ARBs had a hazard ratio of 1.7 with a confidence interval of 0.93 to 3.16, p-value of 0.08. So PEACE registry is the largest longitudinal multi-center study in Africa of peripartum cardiomyopathy in Africa. In this post-hoc analysis, they aim to determine the clinical features and outcomes of peripartum cardiomyopathy grouped according to their baseline systolic blood pressure. And they found that 1/5 of these patients were hypotensive at enrollment, and systolic blood pressure less than 90 millimeters of mercury increased the risk of all-cause mortality by four-fold. In addition, a unit increase of left ventricular ejection fraction was independently associated with improved survival. However, systolic blood pressure was not associated with left ventricular systolic function recovery. And systolic blood pressure less than 90 millimeters of mercury had a frequency of all-cause mortality of 59.9%. This is in keeping with previous studies that demonstrated the prognostic significance of systolic blood pressure in heart failure patients. Okay, these studies specifically found the lowest frequency of mortality in systolic blood pressure between 100 and 100.
Just all move at that time.
Then other studies have reported reduced mortality in patients that have systolic blood pressure greater than or equal to 115 millimeters of mercury. So association between systolic blood pressure of less than 90 millimeters of mercury and higher mortality in their study is a clear testimony to the fact that study centers were not capable of optimally treating these patients with hypertension, because this patient may require other device therapies. So, and then in addition to higher mortality rate, patients with systolic blood pressure of less than 90 were also the most symptomatic. You can see the percentage of 66.7% of these patients had the lowest ejection New York had classification 3 or 4, and they had the lowest left ventricular systolic ejection, left ventricular ejection fraction 2.9%. So this clinical feature suggests advanced heart failure, and with these patients may require therapeutic options that may include mechanical circulatory support, intercardiac devices, coronary synchronization therapy, and cardiac transplant. These facilities are not available in our centers. Unfortunately, and this may contribute to the high mortality rates recorded in these patients. Previous studies have demonstrated an association between relatively high systolic blood pressure or hypertension with better outcomes in peripartum cardiomyopathy. In those with chronic stable heart failure. This is similar to this study. And low left ventricular ejection fraction had consistently shown poor prognosis in patients with peripartum cardiomyopathy. So the limitations of these studies, the findings were derived from a post-hoc analysis of the PIST registry data, and the groups compared were therefore not initially matched for potential confounders. However, potential confounders were controlled in the cost professional hazard regression model for all-cause mortality in line with statistical analysis plan. And then secondly, their cohort included peripartum cardiomyopathy patients who had survived the first 3 to 6 months postpartum with residual left ventricular dysfunction, which might have increased the risk of subsequent mortality. Peripartum cardiomyopathy is known to have a better prognosis compared to hypertensive heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. So some of those, in most cases, most patients will present with, most patients tend to have full recover systolic function within the first 3 to 6 months. Others may have persistent reduced left ventricular systolic. So they conclude by saying that hypertension is not uncommon among patients with peripartum cardiomyopathy. Systolic blood pressure of less than 90 milligrams of mercury was associated with 4-fold higher risk of all mortality. And they recommended the provision of circulatory support, heart transplant devices for care of peripartum cardiomyopathy patients and other advanced disease in line with standard recommendations. There was no financial support, no conflicts of interest. So, looking at the title, just like I said earlier, the title of the study is clear and reflects the study population.
Sorry, Dr. Sani Abubakar. I think the noise from Jess's end is too much. Could you mute Jesse, please? There's just so much noise from her end. Please. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay. So just like I was saying, the title reflects the study objective, and it was clear, and also reflects the study population and location. The abstract is also well structured and gives clear overview of the study, and it contains the following outlines, and it has conclusion. However, the conclusion was appropriate. However, there was no recommendation from the abstract. Study population, location, and design is well stated in the methodology. Sampling technique, inclusion criteria, and limitation of the study were also well stated. However, pregnant women less than 28 weeks of gestation were included. These patients may likely have hypertensive heart disease, because of the poor health seeking behavior of these patients, and also the low socioeconomic status, and also the hormonal defect of pregnancy. At the early stage, they may not have present with elevated blood pressure or maybe pregnancy being a precipitant that warrants their presentation. And another thing, and then also in the recruitment method, other confounders were not considered. Other, like I said, pericardial cardiomyopathy is a diagnosis of exclusion. So other causes of cardiomyopathy should have been looked out for, things like alcohol, diabetes mellitus, retroviral disease, cell disease. These are very important, especially that we recruited patients by less than 28 weeks. We know that pericardial cardiomyopathy commonly is defined as the left ventricular systolic dysfunction, less than the ejection fraction of less than 45 during the last month of pregnancy or 5 months of gestation. So these patients, most patients present during the first few weeks post delivery, and then other patients may present in the last 1 month. So 28 weeks may not likely be PPCM. Sample size and method of calculating sample size were not reported, and then specific confounders were not mentioned. Patients that were lost to follow up were not also reported, and how this was handled was not also reported. And also there was no mention of missing data and how it was dealt with. The statistical analysis, chi-square Fisher-Isaac test, student test, and Whitney test were used to compare continuous and categorical variables. However, looking at this article, the patients were grouped into 7 based on their baseline systolic blood pressure. So student tests will have been more appropriate to compare the medians between the two groups. Okay, student t-test is actually used to compare the medians in 2 different groups. And in this case, we have 7 different groups. So analysis of variance should have been more appropriate for this study. And then if you look at the distribution of the results, is non-linear. So Mann-Whitney test may not be appropriate. Kuskawali test, because even the population, the sample size for individual group is not the same. You see that more than 48.9% of these patients have blood pressure between 110 to 190. So most of these patients now, only 9 patients had blood pressure of less than 90. So the distribution is very important. Kuskawali test will have been more appropriate than Mann-Whitney. And then results were able to address the study. For the results, they were able to address the study objectives. And the insufficient number of patients with systolic blood pressure is captured as one of the limitations. So for the gestational age, months postpartum, and then duration of symptoms at enrollment should have been included. This will be able to tell those patients that present late, who are likely to have. Sorry, let me.
They keep unmuting themselves. I think you should remove them from the meeting. Please remove them from the meeting. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, just like I was saying, the gestational age at enrollment, if I was to know that, okay, how many patients presented since 28 weeks gestation were involved, how many patients were recruited at 28 weeks, how many patients were recruited at the last month of pregnancy, so that we can see whether the number of those that are presented before the last month of pregnancy, whether they are higher than those that presented within the last month of pregnancy. And also the duration of symptoms will tell us those that present late who are likely to come with more complications. And so attempts should have been made to find out confounding factors that have contributed to low blood pressure as a poor prognostic factor, like intercurrent infection, arrhythmias, which may likely be the direct cause of death in these patients. And then hypertensive heart failure, then study outcome was presented in both tables and graph. Maybe the figure will have been better. Then in the discussion results, these results were similar with the previous studies, and the authors were able to link the result with conclusion and recommendation. So I will conclude this review by going through this checklist, which uses has two different sections that analyze the validity, the result, and also the applicability. So the first question is, did the study address a clearly focused issue? Yes, it was able to address the issue of relationship between systolic blood pressure and the outcome of which is mortality and left ventricular systolic function. And was the cohort recruited in an acceptable way? That I cannot tell. Was the exposure accurately measured to minimize bias? Yes. These patients were followed up for at least 12 months. However, this patient should have a uniform follow-up, maybe making it a 1 year or 2 years follow-up for both participants. So, but if looking at the prognosis of this patient, some may have full recovery at 3 to 6 months. So follow-up of at least 12 months is adequate to make a certain conclusion. Was the exposure accurately measured to minimize bias? Yes. Was the outcome accurately measured to minimize bias? Yes. Have the authors identified all important confounding factors? No. Have they taken account of the confounding factors in the design and or analysis? That I cannot tell. And was the follow-up of the subject complete enough? Yes. Was the follow-up of the subject long enough? Yes. What was the result? The result showed that systolic blood pressure of less than 90 was associated with a 4-fold high risk of all-cause mortality. How precise are the results? I'm not sure. Yeah, I believe the results. Can the result be applied to the local population? Yes, because this registry cut across all the geopolitical zones. And Nigeria being the most populous Black nation, these results can be applicable in Black individuals. Do the results of this study fit with other available evidence? Yes. What are the implications of this study to practice? This study, the need for provision of circulatory supports, transplant devices, and also creating awareness is necessary because some of these patients present late. So these are some of my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sani Abubakar, for a really good one. However, before I open the floor to ask questions, I would like to make a small apology. There was a slight breakdown in communication. The article that was shared is a bit different from this one, but it's the same set of authors, but a different principal investigator. He was supposed to do this review in May, but the person who was supposed to do January had to travel, and he agreed to do it, but forgot to tell him that he should be taking the article that was shared on the Journal Club. But overall, I think he did a good job, and I was able to follow, even though I didn't go through this article. So my sincere apologies for that. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. So if we take questions and comments, first of all, because the authors, I told them just 12 to 1. So just before we let them go, I'll just say if they have any questions or comments for the reviewer. Okay, so let me just reclaim host and then I can unmute. So we have 3 of the authors here. If their screen names correspond to what I know, we have Professor Karaye, we have Dr. Oga and Dr. Koli. So I don't know if any one of you has any comments for him. Please, you can unmute and ask. I've changed security to allow you unmute. Thank you. Please unmute and speak with us.
Thank you very much. Let me just make 1 or 2 comments. My name is Camilo Karaye, and I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. So thank you for taking our article today. It's the most recent one published. And I am the principal investigator of the registry. Dr. Henry Okoli represented your center actually in the study, and he did an excellent job there. So thank you, Dr. Okoli, for all your contributions. So your center actually participated. And I want to also congratulate the presenter, an excellent job, really, well presented. Just a few corrections. Well, the correction I want to make is that in Peace Registry, we did not recruit any pregnant patient or woman at all. Though we studied pregnant women, but that is a sub-study of the registry, and the results have been published. So I think there is a problem that I think he didn't quite catch that in the paper. Maybe it was not clearly stated. So the issue of recruiting pregnant women with hypertension and your comment that some of the patients were not PPCM patients, I think is not quite correct. Details of the study protocol were not described, and I think the lead author for this paper, Dr. Hadiza Saidu, mentioned that the details of the protocol were not published were not detailed, but referred you to the actual protocol paper. Yeah, I agree there were a few corrections in the statistical analysis, but the statistics were actually done correctly. Maybe it was not well described, but appropriate statistical tests were applied and carried out. But I think in the report, there are a few issues. The issue of confounding, as mentioned in the limitations. This is a post hoc analysis. There is no way you can do it like as if it is the primary aim of the study. So bearing that in mind, some of the confounders were addressed in the statistical analysis, but of course, some will escape control in the statistical analysis. So it's probably not as severe as it might have been stated, but I think overall it's an excellent presentation, and I congratulate Dr. Sani Abubakar for the presentation. Well done. I'm sure maybe Dr. Oga may say 1 or 2 things, and Dr. Okoli as well, because they actively participated in the study. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations again, Dr. Sani. Dr. Oga. Dr. Oga, are you still there? I've allowed, you can unmute and speak. Maybe network. Maybe whilst we're waiting for Dr. Oga. Okay, good. All right. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Zainab, for choosing our paper. And anyway, let me start by thanking Professor Karaye as well for the input you have made, and the speaker for the wonderful presentation. Professor Karaye has touched on some of the areas that I also had concern. But I wanted to know the tool that you were using for your critique for the paper. Maybe I missed that. What tool did you?
I think he projected the CASP one.
So I use CASP checklist. Okay. Yes.
And that's for a cohort?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I think most of the things that Professor Karaye had in mind, those are the things I also so that you should have made some effort, since the reference to the rationale and design paper was mentioned. You should have an idea to go through it and to know the details about the peace registry and even the original paper, which I encourage as many of us, especially many of us who are working in PPCM high burden areas, to go through the original papers that were published on this disease, so that will give us a good understanding of the profile and the clinical characteristics of the kind of patients we deal with. And as a society, we encourage as many people as possible to be involved in the message of PPCM, because we believe that if women have adequate antenatal care, adequate nutrition, as most of these things may actually be caught early, and these women are properly treated. This is one, Zainab, I hope we are able to convince you to buy into the message of the peace registry, so that since it's really something that is taking the lives of young women in all parts of the country, not just in the north, although we know that the hotspot is in Northwest. It's a lot of women. Nobody talks about it. We're more interested, maybe the men and also the women are more interested in the pelvic issues about these women, which is the fistula development and all those. Beyond that, a lot of these women are suffering from, distressing heart failure, and which even kills them earlier before the VVF kills any woman. And we really need to talk about it. Thank you for choosing the paper. I think maybe I should use the opportunity to link you up with Professor Karai, so that I know you're a plastic person, but you can also be a champion in the BVF message in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll be very happy to be linked to Professor Karai in case if he needs cosmetic surgery. All three coordinators are plastic surgeons, so we're very happy to link with him. That was on a lighter note. So thank you, Dr. Okoli. Would you like to say something before we go to Q&A? Okay, I think his network might have thrown him out. He's no longer here. So, so once again, apologies for the breakdown in communication. The other paper was scheduled to have in May. That's the original article. We're hoping you'll be able to make time to be with us again. It's always so interesting when we have the authors around and they can help us address such issues as you have addressed now. So quickly, we've already overshot our time, but before you start asking questions, for those who've been with us long enough, you know that we normally schedule another day to discuss the biostatistics of the article, and our statistics guru, Mr. Felix Emeka Enyam, has promised that he can be here for Friday. So once we sort out the time, we're looking at 5 p.m. tentatively, 5 p.m. Friday, this Friday. I'll put it on the Journal Club group and on the AuthorAid National Hub group. Thank you. So can we have like 3 questions so we don't keep everybody too long? 3 questions. If you have a question, quickly unmute. It will be fastest fingers first now, and then ask your question. Okay. Looks like there are no questions, there are no comments. The only one I have that hasn't been addressed, okay, Prof posted a comment. Said our review article on PPCM will be published in this month's edition of West African College of Medicine. We sure will, Prof, and we're likely to be calling you back to be there, to be present at the journal review session. Thank you. And our statistics guru has also said that he'll be very happy to take the session on Friday. Thank you. So my comment for Dr. Abakar was, when he read out the topic of the paper, he already started to talk about you already started to make comments about how appropriate the article is and then the abstract. It's generally preferred that you do your critique after you review the article. So please note that. And if there's any dissenting voice, please let me know, but that's what I've always known. And then when you said word count, do you mean word count by the criteria you used, or did you go to the instruction to authors for the journal? Dr. Sani Abubakar?
Yes, ma'am. It's with the criteria I use. One of the material I came across was talking about the number of word counts for title should be less than 22. Okay,
but you are aware that the instruction to authors, the journal, different journals, even though most of the rules are about the same, but different journals have slightly different rules. So if the journal was published in says you can go beyond what your own guideline specifies, then you might be judging wrongly. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Looks like there are no comments. If there are no comments, I think I will just say a huge thank you to everybody, starting with the authors for making time to be here and their very valuable contributions. Our reviewer, who also got this on short notice. He thought he was going to do this in May, and then we slammed this on him that it would be in January. Thank you, and for everybody present. Thank you so much. We're going to be posting this on we'll post the recording on the Journal Club group so that everybody can have access to it. It's going to be available for about 1 week on the Journal Club before we put it on the National Hub's YouTube channel so that we can all access it. And somebody has written a manuscript on cardiotoxicity. I'm not sure in which cohort, and is calling for collaborators to write the article and publish. So if you're interested, please get in touch with me, and then I will link you up with the person. So we'll see you Friday, by God's grace, for the statistics session. We're going to really break down statistics, we use this paper as guideline, but we'll go in depth into statistics as we always do. Thank you, everybody, and see you on Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.